Hi, welcome to the Unwritten Book Summit. In this virtual event, I'm interviewing experts from the book publishing industry as well as some self-published authors to talk about their experiences writing, publishing, and promoting nonfiction, especially business books. The interviews are pre-recorded and will be uploaded to my YouTube channel. So whether you're currently writing a business book or it's part of your 3-year or 5-year plan, you'll always have access to these videos. And I'm doing this summit as a promotion for my own book launch. Unwritten, The Thought Leader's Guide to Not Overthinking Your Business Book officially launches on October 1st. You can pre-order it now through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, or directly from the publisher, Amplify Publishing Group. Now, let's get to today's guest. Marcey Rader is the founder of Rader Co. and an award-winning keynote speaker, trainer, coach, and author. She champions health-powered productivity. A certified speaking professional and TEDx speaker, she helps individuals and companies create sustainable habits to work well and play more. She has written 3 books on productivity, and her 4th book will be published in early 2025. Full disclosure, I edited Marcey's 3rd book, Work Well, Play More, and we're in the process of editing her 4th book now. Marcey, it's great to chat with you. Thanks for being here. I really wanted to interview you to share the author's perspective. So I'm curious to hear about your experience with writing, promoting, and publishing, and especially how being a published author supports your business. So I want to get into some really juicy questions here with you. So thank you again for being here. But
Ready.
yeah, tell us what's your writing process like? How has it evolved over time?
Oh my goodness. So I have to say, this is my 4th book. And because my husband is a professional musician, this is how I talk about this is my analogy from book 1 to 4. So book 1 is like recording in your parents' basement. Book 2 was like, I hired a local studio. Book 3 was like, I went to Nashville. Like that one was when I first hired you as a developmental editor. I didn't even know what that term meant.
Right.
And I remember when I hired you, I knew you, I liked you, I trusted you, and I don't know if you remember, but on the first meeting I said, I'm signed up for you, but I don't even know what it is that you're going to do for me. I just trusted you that much.
Yeah.
And then when
Yeah.
you told me and I still didn't really understand
Mhm, mhm.
what a developmental editor did.
Yeah.
And then when you sent me back the research and then like your suggestions for the book and how to format, I was like, oh, this is what I've needed all along.
Yeah.
And so this 4th book, it was not even a question, hiring you again.
Mhm.
And the first 3 were B2C,
Mm,
and this one is B2B.
mhm,
And as far as process goes, it's practice. Like
mhm,
learning your writing style, I think is a lot about practice. For
mhm,
me,
mhm,
it is scheduling big chunks of time to only work on the book. And when I say
mhm,
big chunks of time, I have uh, I've rented an Airbnb, a cottage in Pittsburgh, about an hour and a half from where I live, twice, and spent 2 and 3 days there just writing. And I have taken, full days and gone somewhere outside of my office, typically Umstead State Park,
mhm.
because there's no Wi-Fi, so I'm not tempted.
Yeah.
And if the day is just dedicated to writing, other
Yeah.
people I know can do like pockets here and there.
Mhm.
And that is not my style. It doesn't work for me. I can do
Yeah.
pockets of other things related to the book, but not the writing piece of it.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Yeah, I think I talk a little bit about different writing styles in my book and how you can, do timed writing for yourself to kind of figure out what your writing style is and figuring out, can I write in a 20-minute block or do I need 3 hours?
Mhm.
I'm kind of like you. I need long blocks to really get into it and get my brain going and so the words start flowing. If I try to do 20 minutes, I'm probably gonna mull over a sentence or two for, and I love the idea of going to a cabin in the woods or, going and finding some space and some time. I finished my book on a writing retreat with a friend of mine. We went to the beach for a weekend or middle of the week, I guess, for 2 days. We just worked on our books, and it was beautiful, and it feels so good to produce words in that way when it works. It's really beautiful. I also love the analogy of the first book. You kept it simple. It was playing in your parents' basement, and yeah, and then you thought about, okay, who can I hire to help me get these books out into the world and make them even better and reach more people and all of that. So I love that, all of it. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can see the quality progression as well.
Yeah,
Like my first
sure.
book, it's not for sale anymore.
Right.
Typos, like I mean, just terrible. It was really just terrible. And you talk about in your book, messy first draft.
Yes.
And I feel like my first book was like messy first book.
Yeah.
And anybody that's writing a first book, it is not going to be perfect. And 10 years from now, if you're proud of it, good for you.
Yeah.
For me, it was like I did it, and that I needed to have done it in that way.
Yeah.
But also, when I first wrote it, it was 10 years ago, and believe it or not, there just wasn't as much online about writing your own book.
Oh, yeah. I'm
And I
sure.
didn't have
Yeah.
the community that I do now. I didn't really know any other authors. And
Yeah.
so if you're writing a first book now, it would probably be way better than my first book was, just because I just didn't, if it was out there, I didn't know that it was out there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Do you find I found this in writing my first book, like, oh, yes, I definitely think I will write another book. Like it just feels like I didn't think that before. Like I was like, this one book is probably enough, one and done. But after writing it, then it's kind of like you get the itch or something. You're like, oh, I could see. I don't quite have an idea sketched out yet, but I can feel it like being there. Do you feel that? Did you feel that when you wrote your first book or your second book? Like, oh, I could do another one.
yeah, I don't know if I felt that with my first book,
Uh-huh.
but and then with the last book, Work Well, Play More,
Yeah.
I kind of felt like I was done for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was at a mastermind retreat, and one of my friends in the mastermind said, you need to write a B2B book. And I was like, damn you, you're right. I do need to write a B2B book. And
Uh-huh.
this has been the fastest and easiest for me.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's just because muscle memory,
Yeah.
in knowing what my writing style is and so on. So it's
Yeah.
do I have an idea for a fifth book? No, but it doesn't mean that it won't happen.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's been what, 4 years since the last one?
2019.
Yeah.
Updated it 4 times
Uh-huh.
because either technology has changed, because my book
Right.
is about productivity, and so some of those things have changed. Also, I've changed in my philosophy for different things.
Yeah.
Different health research has come out. And
Right.
so I wanted to make sure that I updated that content. So anybody that has the first book, the first version of Work Well, Play More, it's actually pretty different than the fourth version. Yeah.
Yeah, which is also a good tip. Like, we think in our heads, like, this is the end all be all. I'm never going to change it. But the fact is, things shift. Even reading through my book, which I wrote, well, now a year and a half ago or so, the first draft anyway, I'm listening to the audiobook. I've been listening to the audiobook the last couple of days, which is kind of fun. But I'm hearing things. I'm like, oh, I would say that differently even now. I have different thoughts about these
Yeah.
things even now. So yeah, that's natural. It happens.
But that's a good point.
Oh,
I just want to let your listeners
yeah.
know. You will always find things that you will wish you could change or want to change. Your book will never be finished in your head.
Love it. Yes.
So at some point, it has to be good enough, and you need to get it out. Because you will change how you say something a month from now.
Absolutely. And that's why I really recommend, like you mentioned, that getting that messy first draft done rather than, oh, let me rewrite chapter one, because you can rewrite chapter one 4,000 times and still not be happy with it. So you have to get to the end so that you can do the editing. Yeah, exactly. What would you say is the biggest thing you learned after publishing Work Well, Play More that's kind of shaping how you're thinking about the current book that you're working on?
Well, as a self-published author, most people in my space, speaker, trainer, coach,
Yeah,
we are not doing it thinking that we're going to get rich off of a book.
right.
Not that I ever did, but the thinking about it in terms of how I can market the
Mm,
business from a B2B perspective is very different. I think I was
mhm,
naive in the first two books, thinking like, oh yeah, I am gonna be able to count on it as like a supplemental income.
mhm,
It wasn't even enough to be considered a supplemental income.
mhm.
But now I know more about book marketing and how I will use it for, to sell to teams and companies,
Yeah.
that even when I launch my book is very timed
Hmm.
with it'll probably be ready in November.
Hmm.
If this is 2024, we have elections in November. It's
Hmm.
everybody's going to be thinking about that.
Yeah.
So I'm being very intentional about when I'm launching it. That's why I'm waiting until 2025. You waited a long time to
Yeah.
launch your book. I even
Yeah.
asked you recently, like, why did you wait so long?
Yeah.
And so being very intentional about when I launch, how I launch,
Hmm.
um, is just built on from what I learned the last time around.
Yeah, that makes really good sense. And plus, you'll have some time to really think about, this is something that I think I didn't even fully appreciate till I'm now in the throes of marketing my book. But like having that time to think, like, what do I want the month when my book comes out to look like? Like,
Yeah.
what speaking engagements do I want to be doing? Because you need to be getting those way ahead of time. Or if
Mhm.
you want to do workshops for, people around your book, now you can kind of schedule those out and you can plan them and think about, what the spring will look like if the book when the book comes out in January or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or podcast interviews. Like
Podcast
I'm
interviews. Yeah.
being asked, about being interviewed for
Yeah.
podcasts, and I'm
Mhm.
actually some of them I'm pushing to next
Yeah.
year so that I will be able to talk about that book.
Yes. That's great. Yeah. So it just gives you more runway, more time
Mhm.
to plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what has being a published author done for you in your business?
Oh, it's been huge for me. And this
Hmm.
is where I would say just naive and ignorance. My first book, which again wasn't even that great, I was selling it at a business travel association event, all day event, and I was a speaker. And a hotel chain was at the table next to me and bought 16 of the books, because
Oh,
my first book was called Hack the Mobile Lifestyle, and it was for business travelers, health and productivity for business travelers. And about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months later, I got a call from their director of marketing, and they said that, they read the book and they asked me to be their spokesperson. And
wow.
so, yeah, so in my second year of business, I was a spokesperson for 2 years for a national hotel chain.
Wow. Yeah.
And I didn't know that that wasn't supposed to happen. Of course, I would be a hotel spokesperson. But what was great is that it forced me to rewrite that book, because
Mm.
they wanted to do a forward. They actually
Oh,
didn't even ask me to clean it up. I just knew that I needed to.
yeah.
And this is actually something that I've done each time and is helpful for me. It's kind of like the writing in chunks or going somewhere and
Yeah.
writing for days at a time. I say either you're a crock pot or you're a microwave. My friend took like 3 years to write her book, maybe six. I don't know. It was a long time.
Yeah.
She's a crock pot. I am a microwave. I decide to write it, and I write, and then,
Yeah.
we're good.
Right.
And the end result is delicious either way. It's just
Right.
a different way to go about it.
Yeah.
And so each time I have given someone a deadline.
Hmm.
And that deadline, for my second book, I gave to the hotel chain, and I said, you'll have 300 books for your engagement in July.
Hmm.
I had to get it done. And I
Yeah.
did that on purpose to myself. Some people that would make themselves, they would throw up if they gave themselves a deadline like that.
Right.
But I did it. For Work Well, Play More, I decided I wanted it to be November 16th. I booked the room. 6 months, like as soon as I decided I was writing
Yeah.
the book, I booked the room. I
Yeah.
sent out a save the date. I
Yeah.
I started all of it. So with
Yeah.
this one, I committed to my masterminded date, but I have also told some of the companies that I'm working with currently, not a specific date
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I do need to see like
Yeah.
January, like January and
Sure.
really look at the calendar, but they know that I'm launching a book in January. And
Right.
I have told them to build it into their budget for
Uh-huh.
the new year. So if I'm telling a team to build it into your budget,
Yeah.
then I need to deliver.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so for
Yeah.
me, that I like the what is it? There are some people that would cause them anxiety. I need to be a little hungry and a
Yeah.
little
Yeah, yeah, I love all those. Like people talk about this deadline business a lot, right? Because I don't keep deadlines to myself very often, you know. It's just too easy to say, ah, I can write that email tomorrow or, whatever. And but having the external pressure can be really helpful for a lot of people. And yeah, I mean, you're right to point out some people get really, that can be too much as well. But having that like I'm going to deliver this book to you because you've got an event coming, or I'm going to deliver this so that your team can learn. Like that's the kind of I would say good external motivation that can
yes,
really be motivational and build the business at the same time because now they built it into their budget. They're going to buy the book.
right,
You're
right,
pre-selling even as you're thinking about that.
right.
So I love that, and I love how integrated it is with the everyday work that you do. Right, it doesn't change your business. That's one of the big things I like to emphasize too. Your business doesn't have to come to a halt when you're writing your book. If you're thinking about the book as part of its support of the business,
Mhm.
then you're thinking down the line, like, this is how I'm going to use it. And that's also motivation. That's internal motivation for
Yeah,
you to
it's
get the book done.
marketing.
Yeah,
I see the
exactly.
book as marketing, not
100%.
if I make money, like, when I make money,
Yeah.
it's like bonus.
Yeah.
It to me, the book is marketing.
Totally. Yeah. And what I love is it's mutually like you market the book, you're marketing the business.
Yes.
You market the business, you're marketing the book. I mean, it can feed on itself that way, which
Mhm.
is great too. Yeah, that's awesome. What advice would you share with new business book authors? You've already given us quite a lot, if anyone's out there taking notes. But
Yeah.
what's like a big piece of advice or one piece of advice you would give?
Oh gosh, beyond what I've given.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Emily did not pay me to say this. Emily's book is excellent.
Thank you.
And I read about 40 to 50 books a year. I have read at least 4 or 5 books on how to write a book.
Mm,
And I read Emily's book and thinking like, maybe, it was more I was reading it because you were my friend.
yeah.
And actually the whole time I was like, oh, I was highlighting stuff. I flagged things. I left Emily a message saying like, I actually didn't think I'd get a lot, and I got a lot out of this book.
I love it.
It is so well done, which of course it should be because of what you do, but it it also just made me realize how much I have to learn.
Mm.
And so one thing I'd say is pick up Emily's book, and I'm going to promote it right now.
Thank you.
And it has the best title ever. It just I love that title. And
Thank you.
then, you know, realizing that you kind of get what you pay for as
Mhm.
far as hiring your editor,
Mhm.
your, doing your book cover and things like that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you can go on Fiverr, which is what I did for my first book, and we
Mhm.
know how that turned out. But I'm really proud of my last two, and that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
hiring Emily and or hiring another fabulous editor. But
Mhm.
realizing that you will be spending money,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
you probably won't get that money back in book sales,
Right. Mhm. Mhm.
but you'll get it back in other ways.
Yeah.
When this is all said and done, based on what I've spent with Emily, I also have a book coach. I'm part of this other program. I'll be, cover all that stuff, launch and marketing and everything. My estimate is probably going to be around 18 grand.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Will I make it back in book sales? I don't know. Probably not.
Probably not.
But I will make it back
Yeah.
in just a couple of engagements.
Yeah, exactly. Keynote speaking, getting paid
Yeah.
to speak, like that's huge for authors as well. Yeah. But that's a very good point. And 18 grand is actually on the low end of what you can
Yeah.
spend. Like you're being very efficient in what
Yes.
you're
Well, that
spending,
that
right?
and that is
Yes.
true.
And very thoughtful
That
about it.
is
Yeah.
true because
Hmm.
I had a client, a coaching client. Um, she's in the book world.
Hmm.
She's a ghostwriter as well, and she for mental health books.
Okay.
And I think she starts at 40 grand.
Yep. Hmm.
40 to
Hmm.
60 grand is what she
Hmm.
starts at. And a lot of first-time authors, because the question was about first-time
Yeah.
authors, just have no idea. And so you have to realize this is an investment
Hmm. Hmm.
and you will get it back in other ways.
Yes. Yeah, that's such a great point. Such something to emphasize because I also think a lot of first-time authors think I'm just going to write the book and then I'll publish it myself on Amazon. You've heard you can do all of that. And you can figure out the formatting, you can figure out all of that stuff and it's really not very expensive to post it on Amazon yourself, but you need a book cover
Mhm.
and you can't just go to Canva. I mean, you can, but
Yeah.
it's not the best idea because people do judge books by their covers. And
Yes, my
so
first three covers were terrible.
right.
They weren't good. And the one that is now Work Well Play More, I do like it better
Uh-huh.
than the original Work Well Play
Uh-huh.
More, but I don't love it. And
Yeah.
this next book, I will not publish that thing unless it is a cover I love.
Love.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
that's one thing. I loved your cover. I wish I had it next to me. I have
Yeah,
it.
I have it here. It's
Oh yeah. So, and your shirt matches it.
I
Look
know.
at
I
it.
like the yellow.
But even the color of yours is different. Like my book
Mhm.
cover is white, and there are a lot of white. Um,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, I don't have one. Well, actually, do I? Oh, I do. Let me just use it as an example.
Yeah.
Hang on. So, like, this is my cover,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
just, it's white, and
Hmm.
it doesn't really stand out. I
Hmm.
don't hate it, but I
Right.
don't love it. And
Yeah.
if your book was on a shelf,
Hmm. Hmm.
that yellow,
Hmm. Yep.
even if
I
it's
wanted
a shade
something to
of
stand
yellow,
out. Yep.
yeah, it's even a
Hmm.
different shade of yellow. So,
Yes. Hmm.
thinking about those things, and
Yeah.
that's where the spending a little bit more
Hmm.
will really come into play.
Yep. I think that's really good. A lot of authors they think, oh, I've written the book, it's done, and they get dropped off a cliff because then they're like, oh wait, I've got to spend on marketing, I've got to spend on the cover, I've got to spend on getting all the pieces together. So
Yeah,
yeah, just having that in your mind as you're writing, I think is really important. And it you have to be strategic about this investment that you're making as well. If you're in a year where your business isn't doing very well, you might have time to write your book because you don't have as much client work, say, but you don't have time, you don't have the money to publish it. You might have to wait until you come around to having the cash flow for that.
yeah,
So just things to sort of plan and think about. I love that. Lots of
yeah.
great advice.
Actually, you said, like having the money and the space and the time,
Mhm.
paraphrasing what you said, but one thing I knew I was going to write this book last December, but I did a TEDx in April,
Right. Yeah.
and I told everyone in my mastermind, I will not write one word until that TEDx is over
Yeah.
because both things are such an endeavor.
Yeah.
And the TEDx was something completely new that I talk about.
Mhm.
And so I could not, um, I couldn't have two big things going on at once.
Right.
So like 2 weeks after the TEDx was over in middle of April, first week of May is when I booked my
Wow.
time, the first time at the cottage. And so
Amazing.
that's another tip I would give
Mhm.
is if you have something big in
Mhm.
your year,
Mhm.
it may not be the right time.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I always say, think about the book as a project. It's a business project, right?
Yeah.
So if you're planning out your year, you're saying, okay, I'm going to do this many client projects and I'm going to refresh my website, whatever these big projects are, you're going to do a TEDx talk that, you have to slot things in where it makes sense because otherwise your book will just never get written. You have to, I really believe like it's a 6 month project. It's, it's something you
Yes.
can fit into your business and get the writing, get that draft out. Yeah.
Yes. Well,
Right.
also thinking about you don't want to be marketing two things at once.
Yeah, that too.
Because I had my TEDx and I marketed that
Right.
pretty heavy for a month. And then I did a new speaker reel in June and
Yeah.
I marketed that pretty heavy.
Yes.
So you don't want to have competing big things
Right.
that you're marketing. And that's also why I didn't want to launch in November because that's when I do an anniversary of Work Well, Play More. So
Yeah.
it's
Mm.
all very strategic.
Yes. Yeah, that's so smart. All of that. It's yes, amazing. Thank you so much, Marcy. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a lot. I think my audience is going to learn a lot. Um, my book is all about not overthinking the writing process, and I think you're a really good example of this because you get it in, you go to the cabin, you write fast, you have a process behind it, and you think very strategically about your book. So I love that. I endorse all of these things.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, I
it
thought about in your book, you talk about how your superpower
yes,
is being fast.
yes.
And so you are a microwave with
Yes, I'm a
oh,
microwave as well. Yes, I love that. A microwave versus the crock pot. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, if you're a leader who could use a productivity boost or you're looking for a dynamic speaker to work with your team, reach out to Marcy. You can connect with her at her website, which is marceyrader.com or helloraderco.com. And you can also connect with her on LinkedIn. I'll put everything in the show notes so everybody will be able to connect with you. But this has been great. Thank you so much.
thank you.